Hi, I'm Granny, and we're going down the rabbit hole of a fairy tale, The Ugly Duckling. It was so beautiful out in the country. It was summer. The wheat fields were golden, the oats were green, and down among the green meadows, the hay was stacked. There was a huge forest in the distance with very deep lakes. And in that forest, a mommy duck sat on her nest, hatching her 4 ducklings. She was becoming somewhat weary because sitting for a long time and hours can be a little dull. One day, the eggshells began to crack, one after another. All 4 eggs hatched. The last one was the largest, and instead of the duckling being yellow, it was a dirty gray. "That's a frighteningly big duckling," the mommy duck said. "He doesn't look at all like the others." They all waddled out to have a look at the green world. Their mommy let them look as much as they pleased because green is good for the eyes. Next day the weather was perfect and the sun shone down on all the green leaves of the forest. The mommy duck led her whole family down to the water. All 4 of her ducklings took to the water. Even the big, ugly gray one was swimming. She admired how all her babies were swimming well and decided to introduce them to the duck yard at the farm. The other ducks surrounded them and said, "That is the ugliest duck we have ever seen. What an ugly looking duckling," and started poking and pushing him. "Let him alone," his mommy duck said. "He isn't doing anyone any harm." The other duck said, "But he's too big and strange and needs a good whacking." The mommy duck said, "He isn't so handsome, but he's good and he swims as well as the rest, maybe even a little better." She stroked his neck and cleaned his feathers, but the poor ugly duckling was pecked and pushed about and made fun of by the ducks, the chickens, and the turkey. He was so sad because he was ugly and laughed at by the whole barnyard. Even his own brothers and sisters abused him. The ugly duckling was so sad he decided to run away. He ran and he ran because his wing feathers hadn't developed yet. He ran until he reached the great marsh where the wild ducks lived. There he lay all night long, so tired and so sad. In the morning, the wild ducks flew over to have a look at their new companion. "What sort of creature are you?" they asked. "You are terribly ugly," they told him. He continued to wander around, looking for a place he felt he could fit in and be accepted. He had avoided the water, remembering how he had been mistreated there too, but he missed it. He remembered it was so refreshing to float on and really fun to dive to the bottom. So off he went. The ugly duckling decided he was going to go swim on the water and dive down to the bottom, which he did. But still, he was mistreated by every living creature because of his ugliness. Autumn came. The leaves in the forest turned yellow and brown. The wind whirled them around. No more green in the world to see. The heavens looked cold as the low clouds hung heavy with snow and hail. Oh, the poor little duckling, all by himself. The winter grew cold and colder, and the ugly duckling managed to survive among the reeds of the forest and marsh. But soon he noticed the lark started singing, and the green was returning. It was becoming beautiful and warmer. The ugly duckling decided to try and fly and was surprised at how strong he was, and he kept flying. Soon he found himself in a great garden where apple trees were blooming with lots of wonderful smells in the air and long green branches that bent over the stream. As the ugly duckling was enjoying this garden, he noticed 3 beautiful white swans floating on the water. He decided to fly near these beautiful birds. The ugly duckling knew they would peck him because he was so ugly, but it would be worth it being so close to them. Oh, he thought they were the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. He flew towards the swans. They saw him and came over to him with their rustling feathers raised. The ugly duckling knew he was going to die and bowed his head over the water to wait. But when he bowed his head, he saw his own reflection in the water. It was no longer the reflection of a clumsy, dirty, gray bird, but he was a swan. He then lifted his head as the other swans came to greet and welcome him. He then understood why he was so happy. He began to understand his good fortune and beauty. He thought about how he had been persecuted, and now he heard the swans call him the most beautiful of all beautiful birds. He never dreamed there could be so much happiness when he was just an ugly duckling. He thought and remembered his mommy duck say, "A good heart never grows proud." Hans Christian Andersen was born in Denmark in 1805 and died in 1875. He was the writer of The Ugly Duckling. He also wrote plays, travelogues, novels, poems, but is best remembered for his fairy tales. Some of Andersen's fairy tales are The Snow Queen, The Red Shoes, The Princess and the Pea, Remember the Stacked Mattresses, The Little Mermaid, they made that into a movie, The Steadfast Tin Soldier, The Little Match Girl, that's been made into a movie too, as is The Emperor's New Clothes, Thumbelina, and The Nightingale. At the end of the story of The Ugly Duckling, Hans Christian Andersen wrote, "For a good heart never grows proud." What do you think he meant by that statement? I don't know a person who hasn't been made fun of or teased or bullied in their lifetime. Maybe for Hans Christian Andersen, quote, "For a good heart never grows proud," means that regardless of how we are treated, we should always treat others kindly, even if they may not deserve it. Thanks for spending this time with me. Please join me again when Granny goes down the rabbit hole. Please subscribe and share. Thank you.